Good afternoon. Good morning, folks. Thanks for tuning into our live session today on CPQ solutions for scaling revenue teams. Today, I'm joined by John Garza, the Chief Growth Officer of MobileForce. We'll be going through a few questions today, kind of talking about what we're seeing in kind of the state of configure price quote, some challenge we're seeing, some solutions, and kind of what's working for revenue teams and maybe what's not out there. John, if it's okay with you, I'd hop right into it.
Yeah, let's go. Excited.
Cool. Quoting continues to kind of be one of the biggest friction points for go-to-market teams. A lot of operators are still duct taping workflows together. We're still seeing a lot of spreadsheets, and occasionally those deals do slip through the cracks. And today what we're going to dig into is what we're actually seeing in the market, what's working, how teams are solving that with MobileForce and HubSpot. Okay, one of our favorite solutions to work with. First question here for you, John. It's a softball. I'd love to hear a little bit kind of what you're seeing on the ground. You know, a lot of teams are still struggling with this. What are some of the most common pain points you're hearing from teams that are trying to manage quoting inside of HubSpot and or MobileForce?
Yeah, for sure. So first off, thanks for having me. I think your framing is spot on. I'm excited to talk about this because it's a problem, right? That touches so many parts of a business. And when quoting's a mess, it's not just a sales issue, it's a revenue issue, right? So what we hear most often from teams is that quoting, it's just a huge source of friction, right? So companies are stuck in manual processes, which creates a huge bottleneck for approvals. And reps have to create quotes in spreadsheets. They email them for sign off and then manually update their CRM, which isn't super efficient, right? So it not only slows down velocity, but it also leads to a lack of visibility for leadership into the health and accuracy of their deals, right? So ultimately, this creates major revenue risk because the quotes, they just often don't align with the final contracts, and that's not good for anybody.
Agree. We've definitely seen kind of all the same things, John. I think other things we've seen is, and you alluded to it, but errors, super easy to make errors in some of these tools. And, you have an error in a large quote that can be a pretty significant impact to revenue. And the other thing as a CRO that, I really want my sales team to be able to focus on those selling motions and not spend as much time in the admin functions and, building things. And I've heard horror stories. Sometimes it can take a few hours to put a quote together, and then you send it to approval, and maybe it comes back, maybe it doesn't. It's not super clear to the teams who's approving it or when it'll get it back. And I think these are all challenges that are solvable nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about some kind of the hidden cost here that we're talking about. And I think most leaders we talk to, they don't think of quoting as a revenue leak. It's just a part of their process. But things we've actually seen with our clients and prospects is missed renewals, deals stalling. And as we know, John, time kills deals, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Then down the road, if you're really doing that kind of third-party attribution, we can see churn that's tied back to those quoting inefficiencies here. In your perspective, kind of what are some of the real impacts to revenue when quoting's not built to scale?
Yeah, for sure. Like, at our company, we see this a lot, right? So a dysfunctional quoting process has a huge impact on revenue, right? And it often goes unnoticed throughout the organization. I think the most immediate effect is that deal stall, right? Which no sales leader wants, and which directly leads to slower sales cycle and velocity slows down, right? So when reps are waiting for approvals or struggling with manual processes, deals lose momentum, right? So ultimately, all these issues just stem from disconnected data. When people are trying to utilize spreadsheets or other homegrown internal processes, it's just causing major misalignment between sales and the rest of the organization. So lots of wasted seller time, just lots of waiting for approvals, and just dysfunction throughout that process when they could actually be selling and generating revenue for the company.
Agree. And I think you alluded to there some of the other systems at play here. Again, as a HubSpot partner, HubSpot helps a lot with the kind of standardization of the tools and the data. It's easier to use as a salesperson. And I think what we hear is that component of is fairly straightforward. Reps take to the tool pretty well and are confident, moving their deal and progressing it, and then they kind of get stuck in that approval process. And I hate to see it, John, when there's a deal stage that says configure price quote, or sometimes configures one stage, price is another, quote's a third. But it just sits in that deal stage, and there's a lot of data we're seeing where it's just it'll stay there for an unprescribed amount of time. And in HubSpot, we've got workflows that can support that. But I think, John, that's where we really need a CPQ solution is for that approvals, for the approvals and the ability to truly customize product and quoting. And it takes the good things about HubSpot and kind of really supercharges them. Would you agree with your clients as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think what we're trying to achieve at Mobile Force is to give sellers and companies the ability to streamline all of it, right? So by integrating directly into HubSpot, it really streamlines that process. So you take all the manual errors out of it, you take all the guesswork out of it, and you create just a really efficient engine to be able to go to market and quote customers and see them through to contract signing phase.
Yeah, we've seen the same as well, and it's definitely moves things a lot faster. And I think also the reporting we're getting back from Mobile Force gives us more visibility, right? As an executive, I mean, sometimes even the C-level we speak to, they don't have sight into their own quoting process because it could be with an inside sales team, right? Or it could be with, a procurement team. And you mentioned siloed there. We're seeing that as well. It's important to note that, and when we're working with Mobile Force and HubSpot together, we're getting a lot of that data and visibility and business intelligence back from Mobile Force into the CRM, where anyone in the sales process can see that. Gives us exact status. And I think that's really impactful for business decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree.
Also helps us, where the dollar stops and where funds are being held up at. Let's talk a little bit about, teams that don't have a proper CPQ solution in place, kind of where teams may get this wrong a little bit or having some challenges there. And so as we are looking at a quoting project, and we're talking to customers, we see a lot of the kind of same mistakes, probably over and over again. We've talked about a few of those today, but I think a lot of our prospects and clients, they probably miss the growth juncture as when they need a CPQ solution and I'd say too late, but it's later than it probably should have been. And it seems to be this investment that folks postpone until it kind of hurts their pockets. And I wish that wasn't the case. Are you seeing that as well, John? And again, it seems for us like teams probably should be adopting these solutions earlier than they think they need it, just in general.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think like when they try to solve this on their own, they just run into a few key mistakes, right? And we see this time and time again. So the biggest one is when teams try to over customize internally without a solid structure, which ends up just creating a huge mess. It's pretty impossible to maintain, right? They might build a solution that works for one specific scenario, but it completely falls apart when they try to scale, right? Another common pitfall is relying on spreadsheets or bolt-on tools, right? This approach means there's no single source of truth and the data doesn't flow seamlessly back into HubSpot. It just creates more manual work and opportunities for error. And teams are really just underestimating the complexity of their approval logic and discounting rules and putting configurations and combinations together. So they need to invest in a platform like Mobile Force, work with companies like Aptitude 8 to integrate into HubSpot appropriately so they can quote effectively.
Yeah, and you called out a really big pain point that I kind of missed earlier. Many clients we talk to don't have clear visibility. Even the executives or ICs, there's disconnection there, but into their actual quoting rules. And so you'll talk to one team as we're implementing these solutions, and they'll say, well, these are our business rules. We'll talk to a different team. Well, yeah, that's true, but also these rules, but also these. And so these custom quoting projects, these manual quoting projects, are just ripe with error because unless you've got clarity into all the business rules and executive agreement on it, how could you possibly be successful? And I think having a tool where you can clearly configure them, everybody sees in one place, there's direct visibility into it, is extremely beneficial.
Absolutely.
Let's see here. So those are a few areas that teams are kind of, missing the needle or maybe just missing some small items. I want to talk a little bit more, John, about just how we extend HubSpot. And a question we get all the time is, how do we know it's the right juncture? And I kind of alluded to a moment ago, teams often don't maybe prolong the investment longer than they should. What are some indicators that businesses and executives can look for when it is probably time to explore CPQ solutions?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? And it really comes down to a point of complexity, right? I think the native HubSpot quoting ingredients, right, they're completely adequate for straightforward deals, right? But I think an organization needs to extend that when they start dealing with more complex business models, right? That means if you're multi-product, multi-location, subscription heavy, you're going to quickly outgrow the basic functionality of what your CRM like HubSpot probably provides, right?
Right.
I think another major tipping point is when you need to connect your quoting process to other business critical systems that may be not natively functional with HubSpot for whatever reason. So if you need robust integrations into your ERP, your billing systems, or custom pricing logic, a dedicated tool is probably essential in that case.
I'm aligned with all those things.
Yeah.
And you touched on a couple of them just to kind of double down on those. I mean, things we look for as well as integration with ERP, the need to do that. We see a lot of clients with robust, NetSuite needs, et cetera. Really good indicator. Cross-functional teams. If you've got a heavy product catalog, those are all good indicators. Multi-location, I think you said that, John. That's another one I would call out. It's important. A lot of rules sometimes tied to region or location or different geos where pricing may be a little different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Different geos, different price books spread across a variety of ways to integrate into the quoting process. I mean, we deal with companies that work on a global scale, and each process is different for every region, right? So once you start getting into that realm, you need a pretty advanced tool like Mobile Force offers.
And I think that's a good part of it. Let's talk a little bit more about Mobile Force's offering, right?
Yeah.
And so when we bring it up with executives, kind of a question we get is, hey, sounds great, Byler. How is it different than some of the other CPQs kind of on the market? I'd love to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so what sets us apart is that we're built to work natively within HubSpot, right? It's not just bolted on or as an afterthought. Many other CPQ solutions are designed for different platforms and then force integrated, I would call it, which can lead to a clunky user experience, right? And data sync issues. Because of the native foundation that we build, we're also able to handle complex pricing, approval logic without slowing down reps, things of that nature. And they can stay in their familiar HubSpot environment and generate an accurate quote in minutes, even with super complicated rules. So all that, plus we also offer seamless ERP and billing integrations, kind of a true funnel alignment, right? So it ensures the data from the quote flows perfectly to your fulfillment and billing systems, eliminating lots of manual work and potential errors. So all in all, we're enterprise CPQ, advanced features, low code to no code integration. Speed and adoption is sort of what we're striving for. So look, just a really tool to integrate with, super intuitive and easily trainable to your sales reps. So I think that's where we really add the value.
I would agree with all those, John. Things we're hearing from our clients who've worked with Mobile Force is two big things come up again and again. And one, I feel like I can work in my CRM. And so many other CPQ solutions that are good tools, you're working in two different tools. I've got to log in here and work over there, and log in here and work over there. I think you all have done a great job of getting things natively integrated, as you alluded to. It's a much better user experience. The second thing you alluded to that, as a technology partner, I want to double down on is, because we build these integrations, sometimes they can be very expensive to integrate with third-party CPQ solutions. And sometimes cost prohibitive. I think your low code, no code integrations make that whole conversation much easier, right? It reduces those barriers. And I mean, not great for us as a service provider, but good for our customers. It lowers their total cost of ownership quite a bit.
Absolutely.
Which is maybe a good segue to get to talk about our company a little bit and some of the work that we do. And so I think, even the best tools, they don't deliver unless they're set up properly. And that's probably true of HubSpot as well, right? And this is where working with a good implementation partner, like App2Date or another partner, is really going to, help ensure a successful outcome. And so I think some areas that we provide value in this process or any partner would. I mean, I think the lesson here for our listeners is, select a good partner that you have confidence they can understand your business, understand CPQ and like how that works, and understand the RevOps, because it's really, they've got to have kind of all three things to really build out the data model correctly. But to do that, you're looking for partners that are going to do things like translate the business logic into those workflows. Okay. Meet with different stakeholders and conduct the necessary interviews to collect all those business requirements I talked about earlier, get them in a single place to get everybody to agree on them. And that's good for the setup and configuration. Some partners will kind of end there. For us, John, the adoption post-implementation is extremely important. And you all provide resources from your team as well that are available post go live. And I think that's really beneficial as well. But when those things are done correctly, it's a great solution. The other thing I want to call it is just your implementation partner's got to be able to understand how to display this revenue information in meaningful ways. So CPQ solutions are wonderful, but if you're not using that data in reports or dashboards and getting that full funnel visibility you talked about, John, I think you're missing an ROI. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head with all the things you said, right? I think taking the first point, for instance, translating business logic into workflows, right? I think App2Date understands how companies actually sell. And so you guys can help us configure the CPQ to match unique processes within a company. you're building custom objects and data models in HubSpot, right, that are necessary for a successful CPQ implementation. You're helping us to drive adoption across the company and across the sales teams that operate within it. And then you're helping us set up the proper reporting that ties quotes to revenue. So you can build the dashboards, the reports that give company leadership the visibility they need to understand how their quoting process is directly impacting the company's bottom line. So super invaluable. You're a trusted partner of ours, and you add tons of value to the companies that you serve.
Thanks, John. Appreciate the kind words.
You got it.
I think we got time for one more question today, and we'll be quick here. As a reminder, team, this is part of a 4-part series we'll be having about CPQ over the next few weeks together. John, final question to close us out today. As an expert in the industry, how, any changes that you're forecasting, or kind of what's your vision for the next, 12 to 18 months, just in the HubSpot ecosystem and CPQ, and how anything about revenue leadership pay attention to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing that comes to mind is the rise of AI-driven pricing and discounting. We're seeing a shift from static rule-based pricing to systems that use AI to analyze things like past deal data and market conditions to recommend the optimal price, SKU, or discount in real time, which I think is awesome, right? So gone are the days of manual keystrokes to accomplish things of that nature, and doing lots of work as a seller to try to uncover some of those things. I think more CRM vendors like HubSpot are getting into the pricing game with some robust quoting features of their own, right? But I think, as customers continue to scale, I think that they'll still likely need to extend these capabilities to purpose-built tools like Mobile Force, right? I think deeper ERP and billing integrations will become the norm. The days of siloed data are ending. So businesses will demand seamless, real-time data flow from the quote all the way through fulfillment, billing, and create a really truly unified revenue operation. So we're going to see a lot happen over the next 12 to 18 months. I think we're just touching the tip of the iceberg in terms of how companies really understand how to best utilize a CPQ type service and how to integrate it into their CRM. Right. So look, I'm bullish. I'm excited about what the next 12 to 18 months have to bring. We
are also bullish on CPQ. And John, I thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure chatting with you today. This will kind of round us out for today, team. Look forward to seeing folks again in 2 weeks. Same bat time, same bat place. Thank you all for joining today, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.